Welcome to the channel. In this video we're going to have a look through the main rulebook for Warhammer 40k 8th edition. This is an overview video so you can see what's behind the cover. This is not an in-depth breakdown of the rules. I'm going to put up a video as well, should be posted around the same time as this one, of a step-by-step guide of the main rules for match play. Without much further ado, let's crack this bad boy open and see what's inside the cover. Already had to flick through it already. A good read through some of the fluff, some of the narrative. It's nice. It's professionally produced, as you would expect from all Games Workshop stuff. And it starts off with these pages with a lovely little bit of narrative here about the new end times, about what's going on. And in this picture, oh trust me, I was flicking through this book to find spot the new model, spot the new thing. And the only picture that I can see a potential new model is on here, because here's the Fetid Blight Roads. Here's some Primaris Space Marines. Here's Guilliman of Ultramar. Who's that? This big wing guy with a scythe. I reckon that's Mortarion, Primarch of the Death Guard. So it starts off with this and this. More story down there. It's all very epic. I encourage you to read it. And more story down there. And then boom. Then we begin. Then we dive into the grim dark future of 40k. And the layout of this book has changed from different rule books. In the past it had all the collecting a hobby, doing the hobby stuff at the back, but now it talks about the hobby right away at the start, collecting Citadel miniatures, building and painting Citadel miniatures, talking about the hobby itself, and then on to the game, and talks about the three ways to play: open play, narrative play and match play. Open play, you just use your power levels, you're not too stringent on the points cost here. There's a couple of different games. There's an open war game and 3 other games that you can play with open play. Narrative play, again, just uses power levels. It's about attack and defenders. It's an asymmetric style of playing. There'll be a defender which only has a small portion of the board, an attacker which has a larger portion of the board, or vice versa in some respects. There's some very interesting narrative games in there. And as I'm very interested in narrative, you'll definitely see some up on the channel. And then there's the match play, the full-on points, and there's Eternal War missions and Maelstrom of War missions, just like the ones that we've known to come and love. We're going to have to get new Maelstrom cards again because they've changed a little bit, not too much. And then after that nice little introduction to the hobby, then we dive into the narrative behind the Dark Millennium. And of course it starts off with the Emperor and the Imperium, and how the Imperium is broken down. And then it goes on and on and on about the Imperium, mankind and the Immaterium, worlds of the Imperium, all the usual stuff that you would expect. And then eventually you hit the timeline, which is a bit here, talks about before the Emperor, the Age of Strife, and then the Age of Darkness, and then the Age of the Imperium, the coming of the Emperor, all the way up to the Great Rift here. Thought this page was quite interesting because it goes from the Scouring to now, and I'd have thought they'd have put some narrative in about the Beast Arises, the Great Ulk War that nearly brought the Imperium to its knees, but nothing in there. Then after that we hit present day, hope rekindled, but not much hope, because now you have the Cicatrix Maledictum, the Great Rift, running all the way through the center of the galaxy, ripping the galaxy in half. Beforehand, Chaos Forces would come spewing out of the Maelstrom or spewing out of the Eye of Terror, but now they come spewing out all the way along the line. And those north of the line, including Baal, the homeworld of the fortress world of the Blood Angels, is on this side of the Cicatrix, the Great Rift. And these on this side of the Great Rift. They're blinded from the light of the Astronomicon. They can't see it. So warp travel on this side is very bad. About 3/4 of the Necron dynasties, if you have the Necron Codex and look, are all up here as well. High Fleet Behemoth coming in this way as well. This side, it's hell on earth. And on this side, where you've got Rubuti Gulliman fighting back from Macragge, from Terra, the new Lord Imperium of the Lord Thingy Bob of the Imperium, fighting back against this rising tide of chaos. I like this little kink around the Tau Empire. I thought that was interesting because we know that they are psychic nulls, right? The Tau. We know that they have very little presence in the warp at all. And it looks like the rift sort of went round them, kind of ignored them. That's very interesting. I like this new map as well. Imagine wherever you are in the galaxy, if you were to look up at the night sky across the galactic plane, you would see this red tear running from horizon to horizon all the way through the night sky. A permanent reminder that chaos is here. For such a long time, the 41st millennium has been stuck 1 minute to midnight. Well, the clock has ticked. We've gone past midnight. We've fallen over the edge. The galaxy has been ripped in half. And the fight back has begun, but what an uphill battle. How do you repair the very fabric of space once it's been torn in two? So now we have the age of the Dark Imperium, hence the Dark Imperium box set, which came out. Armies of the Imperium. So the usual stuff, it goes through the different Space Marine armies that you can get, the Adeptus Astartes, and in here it talks about the Primaris Space Marines and how all the existing chapters across the galaxy welcome the Primaris reinforcements, and the new chapters comprise entirely of Primaris Space Marines. Yeah, of course they did. We shall see. To be continued on that one. There we are, the new boys on the block. And of course it talks about the old ones. Different main Space Marine chapters. One chapter that certainly didn't welcome Primaris Space Marines are the Grey Knights. It's interesting in the Index Imperium 1 book in which they're Grey Knights. Space Wars can get Primaris Space Marines. Blood Angels, Dark Angels, they can all add Primaris Space Marines to their ranks, but the Grey Knights, they don't add Primaris Space Marines to their ranks. They must have been doing something else. Well, let's face it, during the Great Tear, the Great Rift, the Grey Knights would have been extremely busy. Deathwatch didn't get them either, but Deathwatch are made up of all the other chapters pulling people in from time to time, and I'm sure in the future Deathwatch will get their own Primaris Space Marines. They're not a real chapter, are they? Astra Militarum, I like this little bit about the humble lasgun, saying that the lasgun, just the lasgun itself, has killed more than all of the other weapons that have ever been used in the Imperium, because when you've got a billion people firing a billion shots of lasguns, then sure, the humble lasgun has done more damage to the foes of the Imperium than any other weaponry. Nice little bit there. More Imperium stuff. We've got a bit on the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Scutari and the Legio Cybernetica. A bit on the Knights. Imperial agents are in here. So we have the Sisters, Custodes, Inquisition, the Assassinorium. And spot the new model. Can you see any new models in there? That's the new Gravis pattern Space Marine armor. If your captain is equipped with Gravis pattern Space Marine armor, he's toughness 5 instead of toughness 4. And those little jump troops that we've seen on the box set for Dark Imperium, they're toughness 5 as well. Previously, the only toughness 5 Space Marine that we ever knew was Drago once upon a time, before he was nerfed back down to toughness 4. But now you can have toughness 5 Space Marines. And a captain, he's got 6 wounds in that thing. Toughness 5, nice. Yeah, more lovely minis. More lovely minis. More lovely minis. The revered saint herself. And then we're on to the Forces of Chaos. The 4 Forces of Chaos are represented, and they talk about them here. Slanesh is down here. He hasn't been forgotten yet. I'd be sorely tempted to draw a line through there and put Yniad, the god of dead, down there, because previously the Eldar believed that Slanesh would come along and consume all their souls. But those that follow the Reborn, well, now they've got another god that, when they die, consumes all their souls. Maybe it's Slanesh, maybe Tzeentch has been playing. Who knows? Demons of Chaos, Heretic Astartes. Interestingly enough, we've got Death Guard and Thousand Suns here. Death Guard and Thousand Suns. But nothing about Khorne Berserkers yet. Nothing about any of the Tzeentchian things yet. No, they're Tzeentchian things. Slaneshian things yet. But I guess there's a lot of models out for the Thousand Suns. There's a new model for the Death Guard. Then it talks about Space Marine Renegades being bad guys and falling to chaos. And I object to this page because my Space Marine chapter, the 13th, are considered renegades by the Imperium, but they don't consider themselves renegades. They follow the Imperial Creed to the letter. They just don't follow The laws of the Imperium as it stood. And I say as it stood, not as it stands, because Guilliman's coming, and things may be about to change for the 13th. They may no longer be considered renegades. To be continued on that. I'm looking forward to telling the continued story of my Space Marine chapter the 13th through upcoming battle reports and other narrative things that I'm going to be putting out. But yeah, they're pointing out really that not every single Chaos Space Marine has to come from the long war. There are those that fall to Chaos over the long 10,000 years that have been since the Horus Heresy. And my Space Marine chapter are definitely not one of them. So yeah. Lots of different models. Magnus himself, another Primarch. Models. And then after Chaos, we will eventually get onto the Xenos threat, of which there's not very many. There's Tyranids, Orcs, Eldar, and I think that's about it. So we have the Eldari and the different types of the Eldari. Down here, you've got Eldari, Exodites, Redacted. Who are they? Craft Worlds, Corsairs, Outcast, Drukhari. That's a Dark Eldar to you and me. This is a simply stunning picture. This is just, it's stunning. Love that. The avatar of Cain in the background. Talks about the Eldari, talks about the Drukhari, and talks about Harlequins and Ynnari. These are all part of the same faction. You can mix and match if you want to. And then we have some Necron fluff. And this is a very good picture as well. And then we have some Orc stuff. The clans. Lots and lots of Orcs doing what Orcs do. Having a good old scrap with the Tau. Well, yeah. Orcs and Tau scrapping each other. At least it's Farsight. That makes narrative sense. But those Tau stand no chance, do they? The Orcs are right in amongst them. Those Taus are going to get ripped up. Odd Boys, Pain Boys, Weird Boys, and Mechanobs. And then you've got the Orc Weapons of War here. How they get on. And then finally we're on to the Tau. The young upstarts from the east with the Great Rift going around them. And yeah, they don't use warp travel anyway. They'll be fine, right? The Tau. And the Tyranids. Again, another stunning image. And then Genestealer cults here. Genestealer cults and Tyranids belong to the Tyranid faction. They can mob up. They can be part of the same detachment now. And here we go. Did you know that there's a Genestealer cult on Holy Terror? It says it in the Fall of Acadia narrative that somehow, some way, getting through fleet after fleet after fleet and orbital battery and so many gene-encoded checks, so many closed corridors for so many humans to go through, so many scans and bioscans for them to go through, yet somehow, some way, a person with some of the Genestealer strain inside of them managed to make it to Holy Terror. And there's a cult rampaging along down there. I guess when the Custodes find it, they're dead. They won't be there for very long. More lovely new models. This bad boy, Wraith Knights, 24 wounds, toughness 8. But that's okay, because Imperial Knights have 24 wounds and toughness 8 as well now. They can finally go toe-to-toe with these guys in combat. Almost. And the Tau. And more stuff. And the hits just keep on coming. Eternity at war. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. So this section brings us right up to date. It talks about the war zones. War zone Ultramar. This is the Macragge system. Used to consist of 500 worlds and now consists of about 50. With, that bit's in there. Macragge is there. But different war zones, and there's a bit of Macragge. And then war zones, the March of the Plagues. We've got other war zones in here. It does talk about them. Stygius, the Blood Crusade. And those are different war zones. It brings you right up to speed with what's happening throughout the galaxy and just how buggered everyone is. And there is only war, and then we dip into the rules. So this chunk of the book, more than half, is narrative. And then we've got about a third left, maybe 2/5 left on playing the game. Talks about playing the game, talks about the core rules and the advanced rules that come afterwards, and then talks about open narrative and match play. and how to use data sheets. And here's 8 pages of core rules, and that's it. Just 8 pages of core rules, and you use those core rules in open play, match play, narrative play, all of them. And then there's a nice example of the turn, going through 1, 2, 3. Each phase showed you what happens at each phase. I mean, the rules are very simple. They're very ABC. It's so stripped down now, so streamlined. I like it. Fighting a battle, and this is one of the battles you can fight. An only a war battle for open play, but it does have 3 more types of battle that you can fight for open play as well. Then it goes on to narrative play missions, and you've got different rules such as reserves, sentries, sustained assault, things like that. Reserves, of course, work differently now. It'll tell you when you can bring them in, typically at the end of a movement phase, and normally you get to pick. If it doesn't say you can pick the turn, then you roll and it's a 3-up. And then there's different missions for narrative play, and as you can see, the battle grids are completely different from what we normally expect. Completely different, and there's stratagems that are specific to this game type. Stratagems that you need command points to spend on. So 1 command point, 1 command point, 2 command points for these stratagems, and there's stratagems for the attackers, stratagems for the defenders, or the other way around, not sure which way it is, but stratagems that you can use in these. When you begin a game in match play, everyone has 3 command points, and then you can add more command points depending on what you choose to bring along, depending on the detachments you choose to bring along. More historical battles. Oh, this is an example of a historical battle. And then we're on to match play, and it tells you choose your armies, choose your missions, and as you can see, 6 Eternal War missions and 6 Maelstrom missions, which are pretty much the same. However, setting them up is slightly different to before. People get to pick what deployment map it's going to be, depending on who puts down what objective where. And the deployment maps are different, as you can see. We're still keeping Vanguard, Hammer and Anvil, and Dawn of War, which were the 3 that we had, but straight out of the Forge World book, because Forge World, you use 6 deployment maps. We've got 3 new ones here, and it's good to see Search and Destroy back for all you 5th edition and earlier veterans out there. I liked Search and Destroy. Very interesting deployment zone, because these guys could swing around, and with the guys in the right corner, it's a very interesting deployment zone. Easier to set up for than Vanguard Strike anyway. So yeah, but you pick your deployment map now. Whoever's putting down what objective, either the 4th objective or 6th objective, says, right, I'm putting this objective down, so I'm picking this deployment map. Helps level the playing field. And these are your Eternal War missions, though we're not really sure what Retrieval is. No Mercy is basically kill everything you can. And then Scouring, Big Guns, Secure and Control, and a Relic are all familiar to us. And then we're on to the Maelstrom missions, and these are the new Maelstrom cards here. And again, you can spend command points for whipping out new cards if you need them. And then Cleansing Control, Contact Loss, Tactical Escalation, Spoils of Law, Cloak and Shadows, and Deadlock. It's the same ones as they were before, but slightly modified. I mean, let's face it, the last 6 Maelstrom games, missions from 7th edition, I thought they worked very well. Right, bear in mind in the core rules here, it hasn't really talked about terrain or anything like that at all. So essentially, if you're playing open play, don't worry about terrain, don't worry about anything like that, just crack on. But in the advanced rules, we've got campaigns, we've got battle-forged armies, how to build up your battle-forged armies and get your command points together. It talks about the factions and how you build a faction and what a faction is. So Imperium is a faction, or Space Marine is a faction. Chaos is a faction. How you add them all together to get your command points. You get 3 command points plus any more command points it says here. You build a battalion, you've got +9, so you're going to have 12 command points to play with, which will be a game changer. I think command points are going to be a very powerful thing. And then we've got 2 pages of terrain and how stuff interacts with terrain, and stuff acts really differently in the past. You just move. Terrain doesn't affect models like it used to, except for craters and woods. Then it's -2 to when you charge. Obstacles can slow things down, but other stuff, it's very, very quick and very, very simple what ruins does. So infantry can get up and move through and clamber all over ruins, but vehicles, monsters and bikes can't get up and clamber all over ruins. Vehicles includes dreadnoughts and things like that, walkers, which could easily previously get up there. Bikes got up there in 7th edition, even though that was a bit silly. Units that can fly can get up there and clamber all around there, but you've got to be in terrain. You've got to be in terrain, in the craters, inside them, to benefit from cover now. Not just have your toe in. The whole model needs to be in there. So it's going to be very quick and easy to read the terrain rules, but they're very specific now. Except when it comes to scratch-built terrain, and a lot of my terrain is scratch-built. In this case, it says just agree with your opponent. So I'm going to have to get some house rules down with how we play terrain. And hills, for example, I have a lot of hills. Hills don't give you cover at all anymore. If you're stood on top of a hill in the open, hills count as part of the battlefield, not necessarily a part of terrain. That makes sense to me. If there's a unit on a hill, they can get shot at. If there's bunkers dug into that hill, then yeah, they count as bunkers. Then they'll count as barricades. But yeah, hills function differently. Then we've got battle zones, how to fight in different battle zones. So how to do night fighting, how to do fire and fury, how to do psychic maelstrom. A lot of the ideas from these ones come out of some of the supplements that was released. So if you remember Fall of Cadia, they had rules for the psychic stuff that was happening in the background. So psychics were getting stronger or weaker, or demons were appearing, or stuff like that. Well, these are a bit like that. You can play a game, you can say it's in this particular battle zone, and then you can add these rules to it, which just gives it a little bit of spice. It's very interesting. For example, fighting in a psychic maelstrom with psychics is going to be very interesting, because if you roll any doubles when you're trying to manifest psychic powers, then you roll on this table here, and on a 5, roll 2d6. If the total is greater than the psychic's leadership, then they're possessed, and your enemy then gets control of or your opponent gets control of that model for the rest of the game. So suddenly you've got a new model. Very interesting, very fluffy, quite like it. Planet Strike, talking about Planet Strike, planetary assaults, and here's a Planet Fall mission you can play, again with different stratagems that you can use. And then Cities of Death, talking about how to play that one with a game and different stratagems that you can use. I strongly suspect there's going to be Planet Strikes and Cities of Death supplements coming up. I hope they roll it into one book, like different ways of playing, not one whole book that you have to pay for, which is just Planet Strike, one whole book that you have to pay for, which is Cities and Death. I hope they create a supplement book with different ways of playing the game, with more of this sort of stuff in it. Stronghold Assault, for example, and bunker maps, bunker assaulting, and then Death from the Skies, and playing with lots and lots of flyers. And here we are with armor facings for your flyers. Interesting. Just different ways of playing the game. Multiplayer battles. You want to play 2-on-2? How about this? 4 different people playing multiplayer battle carnage. Stratagem, bribe. 1+ command points. You can use the stratagem at any time to give any number of your remaining command points to another player to bargain for a temporary ceasefire, alliance, betrayal, etc. Basically giving them a bribe. Here's all my command points. Please stop shooting at me, or ally with me, or betray that other guy. Nice stuff. Nice stuff. Looking just through these and looking through the different ways you can play the game and these battle zones, it's, as I said, it's just a little bit of seasoning on top, and it makes me really want to play the game. It makes me really want to play these missions, and it tells you as well how to do campaigns if you're into that sort of thing, how to set up campaigns if you want to, and then you've got some of the indexes at the back of the book. The end. So that's it. I just wanted to show you what was behind the cover, what's inside this book, what you can expect. The narrative is condensed but entirely up to date. The different ways of playing the game, because the rule section is so small, they can put more and more and more things in there about how to play the game, how to play this hobby that we all like, we all enjoy. Very looking forward to playing, not just match play, Dawn of War deployment, Maelstrom, but also looking forward to chucking in some of those different types of battles that we've seen in there. All the narrative bits that I've read so far, solid. All the rule sections that I've read so far, well, it leaves me with lots and lots of questions, because then you need to go and have a look at your index and see how your units interact with the core rules, or vice versa, because all the USRs are gone, all the universal special rules are gone, all the stuff that really makes your unit sing are in those individual indexes. Like this one, so I'm going to be doing a walk through these ones as well, just as I've done a walk through that one. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me any feedback, any thoughts. Have you guys read it yet? What do you think? Have you been to your local gaming store? Because you can see this from the 3rd. Yes, the pre-orders are up on the 3rd. The game releases on the 17th. But you can go to your local gaming store and have a good look through it. There's enough of this over the internet anyway. But yeah, hope you enjoyed all that. Happy wargaming.